Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin the 2022 KF Global Korean Studies Forum, subsession 3-3. I am the moderator for this session from Kyunghee Cyber University. My name is Kim Ji-hyung. So in 3-3, the topic of our session is KF eSchool Online Education, and we have diverse presentations prepared. And I had a look at the presentations in advance, and I could see that there was a lot of informative presentations. I would now like to take a minute to introduce our presenters in the order of presentation. From KF, we have Mr. Lee Kwang-chul. Hello, everyone. And next, from Seoul National University, we have Research Fellow Kim Jong-chul joining us. And from the University of Michigan in the United States, we have Professor Yu Young-ju joining us. And from University of Tübingen in Germany, we have Professor Lee Yu-jae joining us. Good afternoon, my name is Lee Yu-jae. And from Indonesia, from Gadjah Mada University, we have Professor Surai Agung Nur joining us. Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you. I think that today's session is in line with the Overseas Korean Studies Paradigm Changes and Future Development, which is the theme of this year's forum. And today we are looking at online education and eSchool, which is at the heart of this paradigm change, and we will cover this topic and have discussions. The first presentation will be delivered by Mr. Lee Kwang-chul from Korea Foundation, and the title of his presentation will be Korea Foundation Global eSchool, Current Status and Vision.
네, 반갑습니다. 이광철.
Hello everyone, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am Kwang-chul Lee. Just as Professor Kim stated, when we were planning the KF Global Korean Studies Forum, we set the theme, Overseas Korean Studies, Paradigm Changes and Future Development, considering KF Global eSchool. And the other professors are going to be explaining about eSchool. And before their presentations, I want to provide an overview of the current status and vision of Global eSchool. I have only been allotted 8 minutes, so I will skip over the content that you already know. So this is the agenda of the presentation. I am sure you know about the project itself, and I want to say that it is a formal course in which you can get credits. And we heard about the difficulties, and there has been a great demand for Korean studies and Korean language courses, and we could not just provide financial support and visiting scholars and visiting professors. We felt that it is important to utilize the courses that Korean professors can deliver here in Korea, and that was the background of the eSchool. Next, on the types of the eSchool projects, it is a bit of a complicated slide, and I try to organize the types. So there are the Korean universities and the overseas universities in which you are connected in real time. And so there are 11 universities participating. And there's also the VOD project in which 7 Korean universities are participating, and the BTS special project. Also for the overseas consortium, we have the North American consortium led by Professor Yu, who's going to be presenting on this. And we also have the Latin American consortium and the Europe consortium led by Germany's Tübingen University that utilizes the CIVIS network. And the characteristics of eSchool is unlike MOOC because you can get credit for these formal courses, and there are formal exams, the midterms and finals, and there's also the VOD type and the real-time courses, live courses. In the live real-time courses, the main courses are Korean studies, and a little bit over 10% are about Korean language. Next, on the growth of eSchool during the past decade, as you can see, during the past 10 years, we have seen a growth of the recipient universities grew by, for the countries, it has grown by fourfold, and for the recipient universities from 18 to 157, and the number of students, you can see that it has rapidly increased. And below you can see the number of courses. In 2010, we had 35 courses provided through eSchool. Now, in terms of recipient courses, 17 universities in Korea are participating, and 179 universities are recipient universities from 47 countries, and approximately 571 courses are being provided. And as you can see here, 70% of the courses are related to social science. So 10 years ago, when we started eSchool, we wanted to fulfill the demand for social science courses. And so I think we were able to satisfy these needs. On the right, you can see it by continent, and you will see that it is led by Asia, Latin America, and Europe. And the number of recipient, the students, you will see that per course, Asia is the highest, and Korean studies is 83%. Some may think that eSchool is courses on Korean language, but actually it is more about Korean studies, and they are courses about Korean social sciences and humanities being taught in English. And next, there's the visiting, like fellowship. So we invited 100 some students to Korea, and so the major results or the outcomes, as you can see below, we were able to expand the number of Korean studies majors, and we were able to diversify the types of courses, and newly incorporated a VOD project. And for the Korean studies course, we have added the VOD, and more Korean universities are participating up until last year. So Honam University has joined, and Jeju University also has been newly added as a university that are providing lectures. And we also have these projects in which we're trying to overcome the difficulties of the situation in which we cannot provide enough faculty. Next, I would like to go on to the vision due to time constraint. From 2021, we carried out the eSchool Vision 2.0, and we have 5 strategies. So these are the 5 directions. We plan to increase the number of eSchool project, the size by 2-fold, and so it is an ambitious goal of expanding the project by 2 times, and we will be establishing a statistics and office, and so our vision is to have the best Korean studies online content and courses being provided. And the background of carrying out eSchool 2.0, you're probably familiar with this. There is a trend of e-learning being expanded, and we wanted to live up to these demands. And we have 150 Korean studies faculty, and we are utilizing a budget of 17 billion. Korean 1, and the next generation project is the eSchool. So that is the strategic direction. So we're trying to increase the eSchool project, and we have set this target of eSchool 2.0. The size of eSchool, if you look at how it has been expanded from 2020 to 2021, so 337 courses are being received overseas, and on the first year, last year, it has been increased to 559 last year, and this year we're very actually close to our target. So by next year, we're trying to set up courses of 700, so we cannot guarantee, but we have this ambitious target, and I think that we can achieve this target. So this is about the quantitative goals, and next for the qualitative goals, I would like to talk about the small grant projects that has been newly set up. It is quite creative, and it is for the field, and with the faith that there can be more creative projects carried out by giving autonomy to the universities. We set this up, and we believe that this is a grassroots type of project, and we're trying to strengthen eSchool. And you will see that last year in July, Seoul National University carried out this eSchool Global Partnership workshop, and Ewha Women's University also had a film festival related to eSchool, and Hanyang University carries out these special lectures 6 times a year. And this is about the platform. We wanted to create a LMS, but we received consulting that this might not be easy. And for the past 11 years, we created a database on the 2,629 courses. And we already established this database. It has been disclosed, and various graphs and statistical information is provided through eSchool integrated platform.
들한테 홍보하시고
You can utilize this information when there is a target recipient country or university.
통합 홍보인데요.
Next, this is the hub. This is the website. It has been renewed. And when you're trying to bring on board Korean universities or partner overseas universities, you can use this information. There are some limitations of such online-only eSchool. That's why we wanted to increase efficiency and impact of these courses. So we are trying to integrate it with the offline courses. So we're trying to connect on offline education, and this is the blended learning. So eSchool is not just a sponsored or supporting type of project. KF lays the framework, and we just provided the platforms. The actual players will have to be the Korean universities providing the courses and the recipient universities abroad. So KF believes that this project should be sponsored and supported in a more creative way. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
발표 감사합니다.
So thank you very much, Mr. Lee, for your presentation from 2011 for 11 years. It seems that you have done a lot, and thank you for that concise summary of those 11 years in 10 minutes.
So to summarize, really there was a sea change for the growth of KFC school, and we're seeing a surge in demand. There's a lot that must be done. Therefore, to live up to those demands, you have set up eSchool 2.0 plan and strategy. If there are any questions, we will cover them during the discussion. So since we do not have time, we will go on to the next presentation from Seoul National University. Jong-chul Kim will be speaking about Seoul National University KF eSchool 11 years, the performance and challenges ahead.
사진이 얼굴이. 네, 소개받은
So as introduced, I am Kim Jong-chul from Seoul National University Asia Center. And from the very beginning, Mr. Choi Yeon-seung and Kim Min-sung, those people helped us to create this project at Seoul National University. And at that time, online education was not based on real-time lectures, but was just based on pre-recorded video lectures. And so at the time, we didn't really know what to do. And following the COVID pandemic, everyone has become very familiar to online platforms such as Zoom. But when we first launched this project, we used a platform called Polycom. And so our foreign partners had to use the same equipment. So there was a lot of impediments to carrying out this project. But for the past 10 years or so, I think we have seen enormous growth. We learned a lot. We were able to create new models working closely with the Korea Foundation. And I would like to briefly tell you about our activities. So I'm not just going to just talk about our history. I'm sure because the parts of our history overlaps with what everyone else will share. So from 2011, we at Seoul National University, the Asia Center was in charge of implementing the Korea Foundation Global eSchool. And up until now, 38 faculty members took part in this eSchool. And we provided lectures in English and Korean to graduate and undergraduate students. And from the very beginning, we were looking at Korean studies from a comparative perspective. We look at humanities and social science. And last year, we began providing Korean language lectures. Up until now, we have offered 121 courses in 22 universities in 13 countries. This is the data for last year, and about 3,100 students took our courses. And based on our four-step plan, we have been implementing the KF eSchool. The eSchool program we did not think would last so long. So we thought in the initial stages that we would probably implement the program for 3 years, maybe a maximum of 10 years. And that's what we discussed with the Korea Foundation. But as we implement these 4 steps, the program is growing bigger. So at first, we wanted to help our foreign university partners to create their own sustainable Korean studies program, but these programs are continuing, so we have actually created new goals for stage 4, and that is to create the foundation for the growth of global Korean studies. So how do we create synergy with our overseas partnership universities? Tübingen University from Germany has worked very closely with us for a very long time, so I'm sure that you will find his presentation quite useful as well. So here you can see our foreign partner universities that we have worked with. So not only in Asia, but in Europe as well. So we have been able to offer courses to countries where there's a time difference of 8 hours. And in the initial stages, we thought about providing courses to those countries in Latin America, but due to the time difference, realistically, it was a little bit difficult. Here you can see the changes in our courses, and you can see my presentation file. So as we go through the 4 stages of eSchool, Southeast Asia in the first stage and second stage, there was not so much focus on Southeast Asia, but now we are focusing on Southeast Asia and India and trying to provide more lectures to these countries. And in the first stages, we looked at the demand of Korean studies, and we also looked at how to utilize ICT in providing courses. So we made various attempts. For Tsinghua University's we had a joint class with the students there. That was an experiment we carried out. And here, if you look at the photos, you can see that there was a lot of exchange. We invited foreign students to Korea. And in the second stage, we looked at operation, how to create the foundation for operating the program. So in the second stage, we offered 30 courses. And here you can see pictures of our program. And we also had academic seminars. So in Vietnam, Korean languages department and other departments hosted joint academic seminars. We held these seminars in Vietnam and also in France, Paris. And within the school, we don't look at just one major. The 7 colleges of Seoul National Universities take part in our research center, so we were able to collaborate among the different departments. And because I don't have a lot of time, I'm just going to show you the pictures. And then we had the fellowship program, and that helped us to promote more exchanges. And when we went abroad, we focused on offline programs as well. So Bordeaux universities, Tübingen universities, they weren't just meeting students, they were actually able to have a lot of open events, and these events were attended by people who were interested in Korea. So here are events in Philippines and Hanoi, and as you can see here, this was in Paris, and also our joint event in Vietnam. And we have online seminars, so here you can see the online seminar that we carried out. So in the 4th stage, we want overseas partner universities to create the foundation for promoting and growing Korean studies. So here we're going to look at assessment and challenges. And so I believe that in terms of quantitative growth, there was a lot of quantitative growth, but there are limitations in qualitative growth. And if there was more time, I would like to go into detail. But if I can briefly mention this, we talked about this in the previous sessions, but you have research about Korean studies and education about Korean studies. So whether you're a scholar or a student, it's different. So research is carried about researchers, those who have PhD. And if you look at Korean studies education, especially e-school, we look at graduate students. We need to create standardized courses. And there are schools who are offering Korean studies for the first time. So there are going to be courses that we need to provide, but we are not providing ample courses to these universities. And we have to look at how we are going to create standardized courses and how we are going to attract those students who are interested in Korean studies. And this is going to require a lot of investment and time. And so through eSchool, we have to think about how to meet the needs of these students. So this is something that we have to also think about. And then there is, here you can see the challenges and the benefits of online lectures. And here I've also listed factors for success. If you look at what's happened after COVID-19, there is a lot of access to online platforms. There's a lot of opportunities. In the past, there were infrastructure limitations that made us difficult to provide lectures to students, for example, in Africa. But for the past 2 years, we have been able to offer lectures to students in new regions. And we have been able to work very closely with faculty in the local universities, have conferences on the Zoom platform. So, for example, in India, Christ University, we have been able to work with them, also universities in Indonesia. So teachers jointly develop courses and provide the lectures together. In order to increase the quality of our lectures, this is something that I'm also thinking about. Princeton University have J-term, and we've been utilizing J-term to provide short-term intensive courses, and we are also closely working with Heidelberg University to provide short-term intensive courses. And these are some of the new models that we are trying to build through the eSchool. And for those, the small grant projects, these type of new initiatives or funding initiatives helps us to cover those areas that we cannot cover in the classroom. So with our overseas partners, we carried out various initiatives last year. And furthermore, if we can propose some projects for the future, we have to think about, those areas where education and research overlap. I think it would be great if we can provide dissertation supervision, but I don't know how we're going to actually provide that. And we also have to develop standardized courses for Korean studies. And we tried to do this with universities in Europe, but it was not successful. So I think it's hard to actually write a textbook for Korean studies. I think possibly we can come up with a standardized reader for Korean studies and then renew this every few years. And that might actually help a lot of the schools who are trying to provide courses in Korean studies. And the Korean Foundation is going to create a new platform, but not just statistics, but I think we can also create and share media files and media material. Then people wouldn't have to collect information on their own. We could collect our information and create this resource pool. So because of time limits, I will end my presentation. So thank you very much, Mr. Kim. So please give him another big round of applause for his presentation. So for the past 11 years, you've provided real-time lectures, and over 3,000 students took part. I think that's quite amazing. So you have connected the classrooms in Korea and overseas universities. I think that is quite a feat. So SNU was one of the first universities that implemented the eSchool. So I think your program has been very deep in terms of breadth and width. And of course, I'm sure that you also face challenges in implementing the eSchool. And you share those challenges that you faced, and also propose some ideas or suggestions for addressing those challenges. So you talked about the connection between Korean universities and overseas universities, and then the limitations and connections, and also time differences. So we created consortiums, and we would now like to hear about those consortiums. So from Michigan University, Professor Yu Young-ju will deliver a presentation titled Big Ten Academic Alliance Korean Studies eSchool.
Hello, I'm Young-ju Yu from Michigan University. I have prepared my presentation in English, so I would like to present in English. I ask for your understanding.
Before I start, I want to give credit where credit is due, which is to Professor No Jin Kwak, who actually prepared this slideshow. He was supposed to be the presenter for this particular panel back in December when it was first proposed. And since then, he has moved on from University of Michigan and gone to bigger and better places. So I'm the new director of the Nam Center for Korean Studies. And so I would like to first declare that I'm following in his footsteps and trying to fill the very large shoes that he left behind. So let me get started also very, very quickly. The background on the Big Ten Academic Alliance. So I think we were one of the first, actually in 2011, 2012, when Korea Foundation launched eSchool initiative. I think the Big Ten, led by University of Michigan, was the first one in terms of the consortium, and we've been in business also for about a decade. The motivation we had in getting involved were several. That there was course demand and faculty strengths that are unevenly represented across the Big Ten Alliance. Then breadth of subject expertise on each campus was also different. And that attempt to bridge those differences would prove productive for all of the members involved. Big Ten, many of you, Big Ten is a very familiar term for North American schools, but it's probably a mystery to many of you here. Big Ten essentially is called, Big Ten is essentially an athletic alliance of predominantly Midwestern schools. In the Midwest, football is Bible. The football coach makes more than the university president. A football coach can get the university president fired, as in the case of University of Michigan recently. So it started as an athletic alliance and academic alliance to follow the athletic alliance. So we had, luckily, when we started this consortium, a very convenient platform that was already in place. So the Big Ten schools had already agreed to a course sharing arrangement, which took care of a lot of headache for us administratively, because we could kind of piggyback on what was already in existence. In 2012, 2013, we started with a pilot program between University of Michigan and Michigan State, with University of Michigan offering the courses and Michigan State receiving the courses. Michigan State did not yet have a Korean studies program, even though it did have a very big and great Korean language program. Over the years, the BTAA eSchool has grown, and BTAA also has grown beyond 10. So in 2014 and 16, we added non-Midwestern schools to the mix, including Maryland, Rutgers and Nebraska. And it sounds like in the years to come, UCLA and USC are going to join the Big Ten, which is going to be a big game changer for us all. As we all know, UCLA and USC have huge and very long and historic Korean programs, studies programs. Okay. The NAM Center coordinates with Korea Foundation, generous funding from the Korea Foundation, and we have the units at each of the campuses, receiving campuses also partnering with us. Main components. The whole idea is that there's a course share cluster. The terminology is a bit confusing because host and home seem like the same thing. But the host campus is the sending campus. That's where the faculty is physically housed, and home campus receives the course. And over the years, it has grown to 2 home campuses receiving the course that's being taught at the host campus. So now the model is, the cluster involves 3 distinct campuses. The course is synchronous and hybrid, and also includes a home campus visit by the faculty teaching the course. Early on in 2012, 2013, this is what the course looked like. This was, of course, pre-pandemic. Real-time synchronous course teaching classroom looks like this. We had to wheel in this big television with the camera and the mic equipment attached to it. And essentially, the receiving campuses, the host campuses, received it virtually, whereas at the host campus, the students were in person. Now, one of the problems that, as you would imagine, that was created by this arrangement was a sense of inequity among the students. The host campus students received physical attention, physical presence of the faculty, whereas the home campuses did not. We try to alleviate that by including home campus visits as a mandatory component, but obviously the faculty can only be out there physically at most twice a semester. So this was a problem, and this problem was magically solved with the onset of Zoom. So now that this inequity of the learning environment or learning experience is no longer a problem, but there are other problems. So this is what it looked like in the distance classroom at Michigan State. Okay, I'm going to zip through. One component we have is a Best Paper Awards and Honors Luncheon. So each of the campuses that receive the courses as well as the host campus, select students based on their paper for this honor. This is what the annual meeting of the BTAA faculty looks like, where we come together and we decide which courses will be taught and received by which campus. Some numbers over the years. For some reason, we're missing the actual numbers. Okay, it just says 표준 instead of the actual numbers, so I apologize for that. It's in the 200 to 300 range from 2016 to 2020. Impact. Okay, so a significant increase in number of students enrolled in Korean studies courses. One of the things that we were most worried about at the very beginning when we were launching this was whether we would end up cannibalizing one another. So offering this option for Korea to take Korean courses virtually, would that disincentivize a campus that doesn't yet have a Korean studies program that might potentially be interested in hiring a Korean studies faculty to not do that, because now the students their needs can be met virtually by a different campus. And by and large, that has not been our experience. So overall, it's had a positive impact on all member institutions, leading to more faculty hires than fewer. So that has been great in terms of impact. Some other components of the program: study abroad scholarships for students in the BTAA. Again, the numbers are missing here for some reason. Let me just pass. Okay, current phase. We're now going to submit phase 4 implementation plan proposal for 2 eSchool. And our goals are to sustain the access of the courses, but also to pursue synergy between teaching and research. And number 3, to foster collaborative opportunities. Reflections. Overall, this has been a very positive and value-added experience for everyone involved. In phase 4, as we look to innovating the program, I'm thinking a lot about what it means to have now Zoom as a tool in our toolkit, which allows us to get over a lot of the problems we had initially. So how do we, in a targeted fashion, allow those courses that require more in-person component? How do we funnel more resources into those courses now that Zoom allows a lot of the other components of the program to be standard without the added investment? So that's one thing that I'm thinking about a lot. There are other things besides that I could talk about, but I'm out of time, so maybe I can come back to it later. Thank you very much.
예, 교수님.
Thank you for your presentation. From 2012, you have been carrying out this program for 10 years, and the number of course demands have increased, but there were differences in the expertise that universities could provide. And I think you started off due to such demand and difference, and also a competency difference. And this has led to a lot of positive results. And we are now living in a new environment with the pandemic, and you are thinking about ways to innovate utilizing the new toolkits at hand. So we heard about the consortium into North America. Next, we would like to hear about Europe, what is happening there.
이유재 교수.
So from Tübingen University, Professor Lee Jae is going to deliver a presentation titled CIVIS KF eSchool Consortium of Korean Studies. So thank you very much. So from last year, we began the KF eSchool Consortium for Korean Studies at Tübingen University, and this will be the topic of my presentation. So in 2010, I began working at Tübingen University, and they created a new Korean Studies department, and we had to create an undergraduate program as well as a master's program at that time. But as you can imagine, we didn't have enough faculty, and students were joining our classes one by one. And because we did not have enough faculty at the school, we thought about, how we were going to offer these courses to the students. At that time, Korea Foundation told us they were going to begin the e-school program, so we quickly worked with Seoul National University to provide and take part in the global e-school. We had lack of faculty, and in Korea there were a lot of teachers, and we did not have courses. So I thought at the time we can import the courses from Korea for free. So that was what I thought initially. So it's sort of like a development assistance, maybe ODA. So I thought it would be type of an ODA. And here in the middle, you can see Professor Park Tae-gyun. And he told us that we will help where we can, and he helped us to kick off this program. So e-school provided a lot of benefits to us. We were able to limit the number of students to 20 students. Korea Foundation said that it would be better if we had more students, but we felt that we should have 20 students because it was not a face-to-face lecture and it was online. So this is something that we have maintained till this day. And students can concentrate and focus during courses. And also we can have face-to-face meeting with students as well. So I think this has been a great part of our program. In 2012, with Professor Park Tae-gyun, we began the e-school program, and until last year, I listed up all of the lectures that we provided. So for the past 10 years, we've accumulated a lot of experiences, and those experiences have been very positive. And we were able to learn a lot during this process. And based on these experiences, I think we should think about the next step forward. We are quite happy with the program, but there is one thing that I would like to point out, is that for the KF e-school, every year there is a summer school that they operate, and no student from the Korean Studies program at Tübingen University took part in the summer program. Of course, there's various reasons, but only those who took part in the previous semester of e-school could take part, or you had to be in Korea at the time. So there were some qualifications, and I would like to point it out once again that, I hope it would be easier for our students to take part in the summer program. So based on this very positive experience, last year we were able to try new things. In Europe, universities, for the past 10 to 20 years, I think in the past 20 years, they have been creating or reaching abroad in the line of globalization and internationalization. They are trying to find partners in Asia and build relationships. French President Macron said that the European universities have built a relationship for centuries, and why are we not paying attention or reinforcing these relationships? And based on what he said, the universities are now creating networks to create more strategic partnerships. And Tübingen University, I we have initially partnered with 7 universities, but now we've increased that number to 10 universities. So we are collaborating with these universities to create a network, and we call this network CIVIS. So it's called a European Civic University. So this is the title of our network. And you can see Madrid, Bucharest, Stockholm, Brussels, Tübingen, and most recently Salzburg, Glasgow. So you can see the number, so you can see the name of the universities that are in our network. So the goal of CIVIS is that within European universities, we want to create innovation in education and research, share our strategies, and create a European university campus, and also create a new model for education and mobility, so that students within Europe can freely move around and promote student exchange. So we want to increase student mobility and increase this by 10% to 2022 and by 50% by 2025. And student mobility within Europe will be encouraged under this network. But these universities are research universities, so they are working closely with research foundations and institutions in Europe. And through various means, they are also trying to implement joint research projects. And ultimately, they hope to provide joint degrees. So when we first began CIVIS, I thought that this would be very beneficial to Korean studies in Europe. At that time, there were 7 universities, and 5 universities provided degrees in Korean studies. So if you look at Korean studies in Europe, it's hard to find universities with more than 1 full-time professor. So I usually call it a one-man institution. So it's hard to find faculty of more than 1 full-time professors. The TO is set, and usually they are national universities and not private universities. So it's very hard to increase the number of faculty. And those are some of the challenges that they face. But the number of students during the past 10 years has actually rapidly increased. So it's a paradox. You don't have enough teachers, but the number of students are increasing. So I think that if the smaller universities collaborate and work closely together, they would be able to supplement or complement their shortcomings. So for one faculty, the area that they can cover is limited. So if I am, say, for example, an expert in Joseon Dynasty period, it's hard to cover the Korean War. And we talked about, modern Korean history, for example, and you want to recruit someone, but sometimes you might not be able to find the right person, but sometimes you might not actually have the position created to find the person. So I think that these are areas where we can collaborate. So Stockholm University Sonja Hustler looks at Joseon literature, but also literature from North Korean, and she received education in East Berlin. And during the Cold War, she studied at Leningrad. Professor Aneta Bruno studied Korean humanities studies at Rome, and Professor Kim Hye-kyung also studied literature, interpretation, and translation. And Professor Diane Yuxel is teaching Yugo theology or theory. And so everyone has different areas of expertise. If we were able to create a team and provide courses to students, we thought it would be very beneficial. So we are focusing on small to mid-sized Korean studies program, and we are trying to connect with each other so that we can complement our shortcomings. And so our principle is that a little bit different from the KFE school if you look at our principle and our goals. So I talked about development aid when I first began my presentation. So what we are pursuing is cooperation and partnership on an equal footing. And if one university provides lecture, two other universities also provide lectures. So we have a system where 3 universities jointly provide lectures, and then in the summer we operate a summer program so that 5 students from the graduate program of each of the 5 universities come together, and so we are able to provide lectures and guide them during the summer school. And the universities in Europe, their strength is diversity, but at the same time that can pose a limitations. The devil is in the details. So it looks like you know each other very well, but sometimes from recognizing credits to the detailed sort of school regulations, there is a lot of discrepancy, so we needed to have in-depth communication to create a satisfactory environment for all. So we need to negotiate and work more closely together for the success of the program. And last year, in 2021 and 2022, these are some of the programs that we operated. So we have 5 courses provided by the 5 universities. So you can see that for each course, 3 universities take part. So we had a total of 16 separate courses being provided. So thank you very much. So thank you very much for your presentation. So we heard about CVIS, and it represents a new trend in Europe. And you've combined eSchool to this CVIS network. So the students' demand is growing up, but there are limitations in increasing the number of faculty. And so I think CVIS is a program that helps us to share expertise as well as diversity in the academic area. So last but not least, we'd like to invite Professor Surai Agung Nur from Gadjah Mada University in Indonesia. The title of his presentation is KF eSchool and Online Education at Korean Department.
네, 감사합니다. 안녕하십니까 여러분.
Hello, thank you very much. So I have prepared a lot of slides today, so I'll try to be quick. I will be speaking in English.
It's different from America and Europe. We don't have that kind of consortium, but I'm going to talk about Gadjah Mada. 우리 대학교 중심으로 아세안이 어떻게 통해서 같이 보도록 하겠습니다.
I will look at our university.
Presentation because I asked my students who are taking part in eSchool, and this is what came up. A few of them, I got stressed to the weekly notes, midterm, final test, and then they are sleeping because of its noon class, because it's 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in Korea. And then some of them did because of the bad connections, and then some of them cannot understand the English. Well, they thought it was going to be easy English, but it is not. So because they're talking about Korean contemporary and then even K-pop, but or Korean culture, but it's going to be, but it's not in standard or medium English, so it's a bit hard for them. So some cannot keep up well, but they had to go through it until the end of semester. But when we asked whether they are satisfied, yes. 다행히. So luckily, yes, they say yes, 60%. And then 32, biasa saja means okay, average. I could enjoy the class, and then only a few didn't like it. And then did you understand Korea after taking class? Yes, this is also one of the big plus of after joining this class, right? And then we also ask, because what kind of subject that do you want if we keep continuing this class? So what comes up, the orange one, budaya, it means culture, and then the yellow one, sejarah, it's like history. Yes, up to now we didn't have any professor in history in our department, so they really want to learn history. So suppose we're going to continue with this, we're going to have history. And then the triangle in blue one is sastra, it means literature, poem, and then Korean poetry, Korean novel. We have one professor, one Song Sanim actually, but she is now doing PhD in Seoul Day. So it's a good thing. 다행히 KF online 덕분에, okay, we have class starting from last year, specializing in Korean literature. This is a big help through this class. And then also the same. Also, where I tick in yellow is like religion and also psychology. Is it possible to do psychology, Korean psychology? But this is what came up when we asked them what you want to learn about Korean. And also culture came up, and then also politics. So we didn't have that kind of politics because we are mostly learning about the language and then culture. So going back in time, we initiated this e-class with Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, Hankuk with this from 2018, a fall semester. So if I could just wrap up, we started with Introduction to Korean Society and Culture, Projin Jongnan, and then Controversial Topic in Contemporary South Korean Society. This is all in English, but Jinjong is this in Korean. And then Professor Regina Song, this is in English. So students we didn't write in their, in the curriculum that is in English on Korea. These are our mistakes. But then we learned a lot that it's going to be in English on Korean. So the students knew beforehand. And then we also had Korean modernization and current issues. This is Professor Yang Chun-yeon, and we have another local university in Yogyakarta. So we have around 60 students. And then Korean literature, this is, and then we conducted with Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh 외국어 정보대학교. And then we have 고급 한국어, which is Professor Kim Soon. I think she is here. There she is. She is my colleague. So this kind of classes, and then Hallyu and pop culture, this is very helpful for us. Otherwise, we would not be able to conduct our classes because still we have like around 7 lecturers, but 3 of them are in Korea. So this KF e-school is really helpful for us to continue doing our classes. A few slight problems. We always start differently. Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Taiwan. Not only the 2-hour difference, but next week, for instance, we start our semester. 개강은 8월 중순 우리는. 근데 한국은 9월 초이거든요. So 어쩔 수 없이 저는 먼저 이 주 3주 먼저 수업 하고 그다음에 바로 9월 초에는 한국에 계신 곳이면 시작하거든요. 이것도 문제거든요.
But that
I can't just skimming the class, and then we have overview what you're going to have learned for the whole semester. And then the end of the class also differ. And then this is also a problem. And then we have to put the input, 성적, but then we have to wait. So this is also a few slight, I just call it a few slight problems. And then also going back again, yeah, this is, I think the Korea Foundation also did a lot, because before Zoom, yeah, we had this kind of problem, right? The video conference, but is it Corona 덕분에, I don't know, but then we have Zoom, we don't have to use that video conference again when we started in 2018. But then nevertheless, this newly introduced KF online paved the way for our students, because we were ready for the online classes. This is just a picture when we had a visit. Yeah, we want to have this kind of 직접 방문, like a visit from professor to our campus, so they have like attachment to who are teaching them. So hopefully, starting from this year, we have Korean professors coming to Indonesia or to Vietnam or to other countries in ASEAN who are joining this KFE class, because this is very important. So since the pandemic, this is what we've been doing. I think every classes in the whole country, even 논문 심사도 하고, 그다음에는 활동도 하고, 사회 활동. Even we have 말하기 대회. 말하기 대회도 어쩔 수 없이 학생들은 그냥 다 유튜브로 업로드 해주고, 우리는 그냥 여기서 심사하고 이런 식으로 하거든요. And then homecoming day도 homecoming we also do this in online. And then the KF class, actually this is an added value to the already fully online class. Once again, this is very helpful for us during the pandemic, and hopefully we have to keep doing this. We have to keep doing this. Okay, this kind of KF class. So, and then I'd like to pinpoint again what they do not like and what they like. The bad internet connection. Maybe it's different from Korea. from other country, 지방에서 있는 학생들은 그 인터넷 상대가 너무 this is good, but then we cannot keep up with this. And then this is 2 hours could be like a long time for them because of the internet connection. And then what they like is that the professor evaluated the assignment in detail. And then they can have a lot of PPT that they can scan through again after the classes. And then they never thought something if we, the local lecturer, teach them about Korea. So it's kind of different perspective if some Korean professors teach directly about Korean culture or even the politics maybe, or the history maybe. Right. This is what, and then this is what I want to, to highlight this one. But of course, online classes is just a fraction of what we've been doing for the past 2 years, because yes, this one. And then we didn't meet our students for 2 years. So we also give scholarship even by online. And then, so we asked them to go to Korea, although this is a pandemic, because it's kind of different. Koreans keep receiving students even during the pandemics. So I would like to end my presentation with 3 things to ponder. So despite the fact that most classes were going to be online, we could not simply slash the school fee. What I mean is that there are students who drop out during the pandemic. So, and then we asked them, we have e-classes, we have like e-classes. E-classes, you don't have to go, you don't have to pay for housing, you don't have to pay for your fee, so don't drop out. So maybe although we start having face-to-face classes this year, this kind of problem could arise. So e-class could be one of the things that we could do. So 그만두고 중단하는 사람 많이거든요. 그래서 we have to think about it because this is very important for us, this kind of e-school. And then the third one is that we have the problem with Marathi class or listening class. Professor cannot teach 40 students because they are the on class. So this is going to be so difficult for them. So is it possible for this kind of listening class through Korean e-class? This is possible. Language. And then, but luckily, we are going to do 60 or 40. 60 to be conducted offline and 40 in online, a blended learning. So this is a good thing for us because, I'm going to skip this. Because one thing for sure, we cannot go back to the pre-pandemic activities. We cannot go back. So we want to do this. We have Hanguk Kennel, Hanguk Yohanal, we're meeting with people. We invite Korean high school teachers to come to our campus, and then we teach them about Korean and Korean culture. And then this is something, maybe we can infuse e-class through them. Not also for students, but also for Korean high school lecturers. And we also have Hangukko Hakwon Hyopwe. So they are teaching Korean for 근로자들은. Okay, they want to go to Korea to work, so they are teaching Korean for them. So maybe we can expand. Is it possible this kind of e-class not only for those in university or in high level university or high degree students, but then also for those people underprivileged people who want to know about Korean. So they know, before coming to Korea, they not only equip themselves with Korean language, but also Korean culture or Korean etiquette. Maybe we have something to think about that. So this is just a picture that we want to do after this pandemics. So we also hope I think also from Turkey, from German, from TVN, Mr. UJ, we also want to do this again, right? This summer school. So I hope the Korea Foundation think about this again. And in fall semester, we are going to do first with Sommyeong Yeojadehakyo, with our first F class. So we have 2 partners now, Hanguk Wede and Sommyeong Yeojade. This is good, right? So once again, Key F class help us in providing more elective classes for our students. And now our government pushed the students to take 20 credits from other universities or other campus or other institutions like Korea Foundation. This is a good push for us. This is we really welcome this kind of e-class program, especially because we could not provide subjects that we don't have professors. Okay, 우리가 직접 제공 못하는 수업들은 이 Korea Foundation E-Class 통해서 우리는 도움이 많이 받을 거라고 생각합니다. So this is the end of my presentation. 감사합니다. 들ima kasih. Thank you.
예, 노을 교수님.
a particular region, and I think he has high expectations for the Korea Foundation eSchool program. So once again, we would like to thank the 5 presenters for their very wonderful presentations. And we are now going to have a general discussion. We do not have a lot of time. Even if we go beyond our schedule, we will try to have a very meaningful and vibrant discussion. So if you have maybe a question for the other presenters, please ask a question. Professor Yu. So I have a question for Professor Yu. You shared us with statistics. You showed us the number of lectures as well as the number of students. And it seems that there's about a 20-fold more students for the courses. So is that true? So you have about 20 students per course. Yes, that is true. So that was a very brief question and answer. And I have an additional question. So is Korea Foundation happy with the number of students? So I haven't been in charge for a very long time, and so I think that was a challenge that I did not have to solve. So my predecessor, he was very capable, and he was able to very smartly address these issues. So I don't think Korea Foundation wants, progress or results from both sides. So it seems like they've been. So we look at quantitative progress as well, because that's what we are assessed on. But if you share with us your unique circumstances, I think we're able to be very flexible. Our partners are the professors, so we don't just look at administrative processes. And because I have the floor, I'm going to talk about some of the issues raised by the professors and the eSchool, summer school, and fellowship programs. Of course, we really want to provide these programs. And once the COVID situation stabilizes, I think this year, we were actually planning to have an international eSchool conference in 2020, but we ended up having a workshop among Korean universities. So this is a small-sized meeting, but we want to invite the recipient universities and also the Korean universities who are providing lectures, and also create a venue where we can listen to the feedback from the recipient university. So once the COVID situation gets better, we hope to have this type of international conference where we can share our ideas and thoughts.
Professor Yu? So these days, one of the concerns that I have these days is that the university students, they learn from their lecturers and from professors, but there's actually a lot of peer learning. But with the Zoom situation, such peer learning is not possible. So the exchange and co-teaching and collaboration that takes place in the classrooms, how can we realize this in a virtual space? That's a concern that I have these days. I think that is a challenge that we have to forever tackle. Any other questions? If not, then we will receive questions from the floor. Do you have any questions?
예, 안녕하십니까.
Hello, I am Hae-young Jang from Chungang University, and from 2011, we are participating in the KFE school with SNU from the first to the fourth stage. And listening to today's forum, I am here to learn on what improvements need to be made. And all of the comments that were made, I truly empathize with you. And we have a professor from the recipient university, and right now we are partnering with universities in Mongolia, Taiwan, and so as a side note, so Big Ten and PECTO, it's right now having a collaboration is surprising because we were always rivals, and so the fact that there's this big collaboration, it's quite surprising. So Pac-12, yes, they're having difficulty, and Big Ten it has a lot of resources, deep pockets these days. And a big concern that we have is the recipient universities have a demand since COVID, and it is about connecting with offline lectures. It is difficult this year, but next year, at least we're trying to make more offline courses, and this, however, requires budget. And how much budget can be allocated for offline type of exchanges? So we need to have actual face-to-face exchanges, and on top of that, we need to build up trust in the virtual world. How much trust and how much exchange, person-to-person exchange can be possible. Even if we create a metaverse, I don't think we can have the level of exchange that we have in the offline world. And so this is a challenge for the recipient countries and the lecture source countries. In 2020, I think I mentioned this before about the platform KF. We ask you to develop a platform that we can all commonly use, because individual universities, they have their own platform, such as Chungang University. We use our own e-class, and in the US, they have another program called Turning In Program. And if Korea Foundation could have a online platform, if you could develop a common platform that the source universities and the recipient universities can use, that would be really helpful. We have asked the Chungang University to use our platform for that, but it's not possible because of the server overload. In 2020, I already mentioned this. So if KF could develop an online platform that we can commonly use, this will be less. This would lessen the burden on the universities. And SNU's presentation, I truly agree that we really need leaders. readers that can be commonly used, and if it's edited, and these readers that the KF publishes on the Korean literature or Korea social studies, sciences, then it would be very helpful for us. And so these are the thoughts that I have gathered from the recipient universities. Thank you very much. So I think it was more of a request than a question.
황영 교수님.
Professor Huang?
지난
So I think if we go back to last September or October, that was the time I left the university that I was at, but I would have more of a comment. So our university, the university I was at, was a recipient university, so I would like to share with you some of my thoughts. So that's why I took the floor. So we implemented eSchool because of COVID-19, and I won't go into the details, but we wanted to provide real-time Korean language lectures, but a lot of the lectures were VOD lectures, and so we had students in the beginners class, and so it was hard to motivate them because it was VOD lectures. So we believe that maybe we should change and have more real-time lectures. Of course, we can have different combinations, but in terms of Korean language, we should have real-time lectures. And social science or those areas that require more expertise, maybe those lectures, I think, would be more appropriate for VOD lectures. So I think shifting this combination might actually help to increase the focus of our students. So whether it's humanities, social science, or Korean language, I think we need to have a better balance between VOD lectures and real-time lectures. And also with regard to hybrid learning, the eSchool, I think it needs to solve some issues regarding hybrid learning, and hybrid learning might be a key word as we move forward. So when we look at hybrid learning, it's about, does it mean combining online and offline learning? So 6 weeks online and 6 weeks offline. If it's a 12-week course, this is an extreme example. Or is it 6 weeks doing activities that are suitable for online environment and 6 weeks for offline environment? So we have to think about what is hybrid learning. So I think you can provide contents online for 6 weeks, and then the remaining 6 weeks you can have discussions and have a lot of activities where there's a lot of face-to-face interaction. So this might be a model of a hybrid learning. And if you look at SNU's example of eSchool program, and also Mr. Lee Lee Kwang-cheol delivered a presentation, and we talk about eSchool 2.0, and we think about Korea Foundation as the biggest platform of providing Korean language lectures, and I think their biggest rival will be YouTube. Because Korea Foundation is under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is a public institution, and they have a set framework in which they provide Korean studies lectures. And I think that eSchool is very important in further implementing and developing Korean studies. And so when we provide online lectures, I think that it would be meaningful. So that is why I'm very interested in this topic. So when we move from eSchool 3.0 to 4.0, we have to think about how we're going to enhance the quality and also expand the program so that more students can have access to it. So one of the reasons why I took interest in this topic is as soon as COVID-19 broke out, two of my students had to go to their homes in the countryside. There was weak internet connection, but they had to take the classes in Zoom. And one student had a 17-year-old brother. And this 17-year-old brother, younger brother, actually took the class for 15 weeks because he was always hanging around his older brother. And he told me, I'm only 17, but the classes were so fun. And so what I felt was, how we provide the contents is very important and critical. So that was one thing I realized. So based on that experience, we began to take interest in the eSchool program. So from a technical point of view, I think that the future of eSchool, if Korea Foundation becomes the hub of Korean studies, then I think that it will actually there will be a technological conversion and it will become cloud-based. And when it becomes cloud-based, then the students, I think, can be expanded. And we can also think about how we're going to provide content. So we have to see a balance between decentralization and centralization. And one of the things that I experienced is that when COVID-19 broke out in Africa, the online schools, whether it's elementary school, middle school, or high school, whether it's in Western Africa or Eastern Africa, the most important application was WhatsApp. So students took classes through WhatsApp. So middle school students actually got assignments through WhatsApp and then submitted their assignments through WhatsApp. Of course, I could not investigate this in detail, but if you look at Africa, one of the things I experienced as well is that students completely change. So the MZ generation, they're a mobile generation. So the education platform for them in Africa is the WhatsApp application. So if they become the next generation of consumers or students for the eSchool, and if they become our partners, then I think that eSchool platform has to further develop to include the mobile platform. I'm sorry that I spoke for such a long time. Thank you. So I think, Mr. Lee, if you can briefly comment.
그 풀데이가
So because this is not a full-day forum and a sub-session, we don't have much time. And sorry about that. I'll try to quickly answer. We have live real-time sessions and VOD. Going into the future, we believe that VOD and live real-time will converge and will be integrated. And real-time universities, they have some limitations. Whereas for the VOD universities, they are now moving toward live and real-time. So this, I think, is a better model. And so we are all open to such options. We heard from SNU and from Chungang University that you talked about a common media center, and if there could be the joint or common media and readers, that would be great. And I understand that it's, of course, difficult to have such university collaboration. If there could be such collaboration, KF is willing to support and sponsor this. And Chungang University professor asked about how much online lectures and courses can be supported. That is a concern for us, and we're trying to strengthen on-offline. And the scope, we will have to have further discussions on that, and I don't think it can be covered right now. And the platform, I think you're talking about LNS. and LMS, and we tried to create an integrated LMS, and we received consulting, but we determined that it will be difficult to do it immediately, and most universities were preferring their own LMS. So even if we create a integrated e-school LMS, we could not enforce this on universities. However, if we have to do a survey of how many universities are willing to use an integrated LMS, and we'll have to consider creating such an integrated LMS. And online education, I always say that you can do whatever you can imagine. So if you combine on and offline learning, that is the direction that we should go toward. And I think that KF School will become a good priming water for this. And with this, we will conclude 3-3 subsession. Thank you very much, the speakers and participants. Thank you for your time. Thank you.